Welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Karakura Gold, your host in this series in which we reread every single chapter of the Bleach manga, apply critical analysis, and derive personal response, as well as provide connections to the rest of the manga. So if any of that interests you, if you're into Bleach or if you're a first time reader, it does not matter, you are in the right place for this Bleach content. So without further ado, let us start with chapter 33 of the Bleach manga. See, blue skies big enough to crush us. Lick our spines. Chapter 33, Rockin' Future 7. Utterly unbelievable. Do you guys know what you've done? Why me? Bleach, Chapter 33, Rockin' Future 7. Look at this. This was broadcast live, nationally, on a TV show shot in our own town. Nationally! Wow. Well, what do you have to say for yourself, Kurosaki? Well, he looks a lot like me? It is you, you moron! Beyond a doubt! It's my long-lost twin brother. I never thought I'd see him again. You have a real contempt for teachers, don't you? You know how much shame you've brought on this school with your little televised stunt? Mr. Kagine? What Arasawa? Ichigo and Rukia were on TV, so I understand why they were singled out, but why are Orihime and I here? You two were with them, weren't you? Coincidentally, we bumped into Rukia on our way there. We had nothing to do with this. Liar! I invited you and Orihime. That's not fair. Don't believe him. He's infamously delusional. Tatsuki, you're just trying to save your own butt. Yeah. That's what happened. We're going back to class now. Let's go, Orihime. Okay, then I'm going too. Not you. Why not? I was just there with Ichigo. Because you were there with Ichigo. You should have tried harder to stop him. This is oppression. I demand humane treatment for students in this school. I'm sorry. This is all because I wasn't strong enough to stop Ichigo. I was closest to him at the time. I even humiliated myself by screaming to stop him from charging in, but Ichigo wouldn't listen to me. Ah! Don't cry, Miss Kuchichi. Okay. You didn't do anything wrong. It was Ichigo's fault, alright? I don't care what happens to him, but I... Huh? Hey, stop, you hooligans! You know what happens if you run? I'll suspend you! Oh, geez, now Miss Kuchiki's disappeared too. Miss Ochi, you saw them. Why didn't you try to stop them? Well, I'm not sure it's really fair to be so hard on them for just appearing on TV. Principal, Mr. Kagine, can I make a copy of this? I want to show it to my grandkids, my students who are on TV. This is unbelievable. Mr. Kagine, I'll have to take the door repair out of your paycheck. Mr. Kagine! Phew, we actually got away. Now we can live happily ever after. All thanks to Rukia. Oh, please. Don't praise her, jerk. She tried to sell me out. But it was Rukia's performance that enabled you to escape. Ah, that's right. It was all an act. I'd never sell out my friend Ichigo. You. This sucks. If I'd known I was going to get yelled at anyway, I would have tried to get on TV too. I could have showcased my beautiful singing voice, and I might have been discovered. No way. The announcer would have drowned you out. Right, Ichigo? You were bummed out about that too, right? Nobody could hear you shout. Yeah, whatever. Heck no. If they knew I was howling Rukia's name, who knows what sort of rumors they'd spread. Announcer guy, thank you. I didn't realize it at the time. But that night's incident and the footage of it would drastically change all of our lives. Ding dong. Hello? Sorry, we're closed in the afternoon on Thursdays. I came to take you for a ride, my number one disciple. Why are you locking the door, my number one disciple? Why wouldn't I? How do you find out where I live, you freak? Get out of here. Why are you being so mean? I'm a big star, you know. I made a secret trip here because I thought you'd be happy. Secret? You're dressed like an insane colorblind king. But these are the dowdiest clothes I have. Whoa, he is a big star. I've already invited your friend, too. Look, Ichigo, he bought me all these gourmet rice dumplings and sweet bean paste from the hotel. Why, that little... She told him where I live. Now open up. Let's take a ride together, my number one disciple. Come on. You just got lonely and bored because it's your day off. Ichigo, stop yelling. Ah! Don Kanonji! I'm a big fan. Oh, really? And such a cute fan. Hollow, let's go. Okay, just show me the way. Hey, where you going, boy? You're leaving me. Shut up. What's all the noise? Boy, good luck. Jeez. I usually don't like it when a hollow shows up, but this time I'm actually relieved. Hey, don't say that. You could make a mistake if you're too relaxed. Yeah, sorry, miss. Look at all of my rice dumplings, Kichiki. Ichigo! Karakura Daiichi High School. Where did you buy that outfit? You first! Kanonji, an Ishin who just came home, hitting it off. This is it for Chapter 33 of Bleach, where we get our first introduction to the character who is on the cover of this whole chapter, who we come to understand throughout the rest of, or this whole chapter, this whole volume. What am I saying? We're going to understand him a little bit more. You get to see a bit more of him in this next arc. But without further ado, let's get right into all of our analysis and response for this chapter. Kind of interesting that we start with this sort of poem here. I was confused for a moment. I was like, what is this interlude poem? But I have various thoughts on what it might be, but the idea of this kind of open sky, this kind of infinite horizon that comes down to us personally, that's all like above us and is touching us, but all and large enough to crush us. I don't know, it's really evoking the hugeness of this ephemeral thing, and having this sort of very close interaction with it, right? With the whole lick our spines and giving it that agency. The idea of that, like, kind of connecting with this whole spiritual world, and that it's this sort of thing that these characters are having these very intimate brushes in with. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I let me know what you think of that opening bit there. But otherwise, we get into the chapter proper where they're all getting chewed out for what happened with Don Kanonji. All of our students of Karakura High School, of course. I like, and this is something that we will continue to get from Kuwatite, where despite having the same uniform, you get a lot of these characters' personalities based off of like the little tiny bits of accessorizing, as well as their posture, their expressions, how they wear that same uniform too. juxtaposes. I mean, like clearly we have like Keigo with the untucked shirt. Ichigo's more put together, but his is, he doesn't have the tie. He has this other undershirt. He's got this whole belt get up and everything. Mizuru looks probably the most put together, purposefully so. We get Chad with even like no undershirt entirely, being kind of macho. But even with the girls, right? There's less variation there, but the differences in their poses and their posture and expressions, all in the same uniform as well, really help to kind of sell those characters and give those characters identity, despite the costuming being the kind of same, which is neat. And I think this is something that Kubo does really effectively. Is constantly you'll have a lot of characters in uniform. And I think it's not just because one, it creates like a very easy visual shorthand for characters and their alliances and what groups they belong to, all of that. Um, it allows you to do subtler things with like mixing up the designs, obviously. Um, but the other kind of interesting thing that you can do whenever what he's really doing with a lot of this uniforming is that he's really putting this emphasis on these groups and these kind of this societal sort of uniforming, right? And how these people kind of get put into the same sort of groupings. So it's interesting to think of like the uniform as very much as a thing for an organization, like something like Soul Society, right? With the Shinigami, where you have people where it's their literal job to go and do battle with these spirits, and they have this very clear kind of outfit and uniform, the robes that they wear. So that's kind of neat. Um, we got that from Rukia, and we get that from Ichigo, and we will continue to kind of see that developed. But even thinking about hollows, right? All the hollows have a sort of uniform to them as well, where they all have this sort of more bestial body and the white mask, right? And the anime even takes that a step further and tends to make all the hollows very dark. Um, so it's like more of like a black body, white mask situation, which is also visually kind of works. But this is one of the all-time famous Bleach chapter covers, the Rockin' Future 7. Just I think because it features a lot of the characters in different and interesting dynamic ways. It really kind of sells the energy for the series. Um, yeah. Also, Rockin' Future 7 is just kind of cool. There's 7 of them. So yeah, obviously getting the fallout a little bit of what's going on here. I think this is the gym teacher chewing him out. Usually the disciplinarian and the gym teacher being the same thing is something that you see a lot in manga. It wasn't so for us. I think we had like a vice principal that always ended up being the disciplinarian in the public schools that I attended growing up. Anyway, it's kind of neat that we have the different characters. I like that here we do get to see a lot of the different ways that these different characters interact with this sort of authority coming down upon them. So, like, we get Ichigo just outright it's just lying, and he gets immediately called out for it. Right, he has this real contempt for teachers, but I think he has a real contempt for these kind of figures, these people that are in power that would hold him responsible for something like this, right? That would try to punish him unfairly. So we get Ichigo kind of being clever and snappy, but it not really being an effective way for him to avoid that conflict. Like he's really clear in how he expresses his conflict and contempt, or expresses that his contempt and how that kind of builds towards this conflict. And he's not trying to escape it, but rather that he's just facing it straight on. We get Tatsuki, who gives like a more rational sort of approach, right? where she attempts to rationalize, and Orihime sort of just like lets her take the lead. Uh, of course, Keigo is a total weasel and tries to avoid, you know, any sort of anything, right? Um, the other kind of interesting thing is, of course, we get Rukia that puts on this very performative bit about, whoa, it's me. I was the one. It's all me. I was the one responsible. Uh, you know, right? So it's interesting that she'll kind of act in a way to manipulate others to really like take the blame. But it does allow everybody else to escape, which is ends up being the most kind of effective strategy of them all. And then of course she runs out too. I love that we also get that we get the feeling that like maybe this will hold some impact for their school situation. But interestingly enough, it becomes very clear that maybe this is only a thing that uh, the one kind of gym coach guy cares about. As this other teacher that we've seen before, this is like their homeroom teacher, right? And of course, the principal here, they both don't seem to really care that much. Yeah, I love the shot of all of them on the stairs. It's pretty good. I mean, we don't get a lot of Chad, but still, I like it. Ultimately, this is all kind of building towards, we get really good expressive work too. I think for everybody. But what I'm saying is, there's an interesting moment here that kind of moves well, where we have Ichigo, like really being happy that they didn't catch all of him and his connection to Rukia, right? And the sort of rumors that would spread and how that might affect him. And we have especially Orihime like looking between Ichigo and Rukia, and then having this kind of moment. And I think, here, because obviously we get this internal narration, but I think here maybe she is sort of reacting to this sense of, Ichigo and Rukia having this connection and definitely being involved in a way that she doesn't fully understand, and that troubling her somewhat, which speaks towards more of Orihime Inoue's kind of perceptiveness, not just spiritually, obviously that's going on, but that she's really able to kind of notice these things and cue in on them. But yes, this we get this very foreboding. The night's incident, and the footage of it would drastically change all their lives, and then we get that very evocative. I like the way that this is also framed, where it's coming out of the darkness of the page, but the shot of the power lines, right? Which, as we talked about before, that ends up becoming very kind of quick visual motif throughout Bleach. It's supposed to evoke this sense of this spiritual conflict happening within an urban setting, right? And so maybe this thing that's going to change all their lives, of course, is this spiritual conflict happening in this setting. And so we have this connection of all of them at this place, and that they're all going to be involved in something that's going to change their lives. And of course, that does come to pass, but the beginnings of that are Don Kanoji showing up over at Ichigo's place. And I love, a lot of stuff about this. Like, having the glass doors really lets this gag work in a lot of ways that I think it wouldn't work otherwise. But also getting to kind of see Ichigo through there. Uh, this Don Kanoji outfit is ridiculous, and I love it. But especially, the reveal that it is, of course, Don Kanoji flips off the cape. Uh, and yeah, Ichigo closes the door and then locks it. Like, just that 3-panel beat is fantastic for me. Um, and yeah, we come to realize that, of course, Rukia Rukia is very enamored with like merchandise and deals, especially. We've gotten that with her a good bit, right? So the idea that anytime that she can get something on some sort of bargain. I don't know. That's just another character trait of hers that I think is more endearing than it is indicative of anything more. It's just like, oh yeah, she's really excited to get all of these gourmet rice dumplings. Like, sweet. Um, yeah, I love that we have that little interaction between Don Kanonji and Yuzu. I think it's pretty cute. Of course, Karen stays in her room and sees Ichigo running off. So we get confirmation that Karen is able to see Ichigo as a Shinigami. Um, and yeah, I think that's the real thing that we're brought attention to, is that especially here we get confirmation, right, of Karen knows, like Ichigo and Rukia especially are like this thing. Obviously, she doesn't know Rukia is living in the closet, but we do get this sort of very explicit, like, okay, I know there's something going on with my brother, and he has this connection to this strange woman. So that's kind of a neat discovery for her. She's always kind of been on the precipice of that, obviously, even though she's had her memory wiped a few times now. And then we have this other character that they run past, right? As the assumption, of course, is that I guess Ruki is in her physical body, right? So she's kind of yelling at Ichigo, and maybe the idea is that, like, yeah, she's having this one-sided conversation with somebody, but nobody really seems to be batting an eye. So assumably isn't that loud. But of course that character turns and he looks, and we get confirmation of a couple of things. One, that this is another person who attends Karakura High School that we haven't met yet, another classmate, but that he's able to see Ichigo as well as Ichigo passes, and then he cues into that. And of course, we know, one, this character is probably significant since he was on the cover of the volume. But the other kind of neat thing that's easy to miss is that this is a character that was actually pretty present in the previous chapters with Don Kanonji. So through reading those, all the chapters in which there was like the crowd involved, you can go back to those videos, and if you didn't watch the spoiler section, where of course I point that out, you can go back and you can see that, yeah, he was definitely in the background there, and in fact, he was the one that was going to jump the gate originally whenever Don Kanonji was, um, you know, about to turn the Demi Hollow into a hollow, right? So this character, clearly involved with spirits and hollows, was willing to get in between the conflict of Don Kanonji and the spirits, but halted whenever Ichigo got involved, and very clearly is a human who is able to, you know, like, obviously he's human, he attends the high school and everything, right? But very clearly is a human that is able to sense Ichigo as this Shinigami, and he has this very serious expression about it, and it's probably a foreboding kind of moment as we get our first introduction to this mysterious other character, despite him kind of being in the background and looming there the entire time. So, if we're to take, those earlier words from, I assume, Orihime, right? Because the focus was on her in those panels, but like the idea that that event and that footage would change their lives, if we were to connect it out, we're already seeing how that event has had this character really recognize at least Ichigo as a Shinigami, right? Or as being this kind of spiritual entity to a degree. So somebody else at their school is already aware of it, and this complicates things in a way that would change things very drastically for them. So the world is, all that world building stuff is giving a little bit more payoff as we head into this next chapter. I love this gag of Kanonji and Ishin both really hitting it off by being excited about each other's outfits. Um, It's good stuff. I remember a couple of these Tankobon kind of interlude bits, but not all of them. And so some of these have been very amusing to return to. Like I said, they're not always done for just the express purpose of making like a quick gag like this. Sometimes they're more like artistic sort of renditions. We've gotten a few of those. I think after the first chapter, we actually had Kisuke, his clogs, as he was kind of watching the situation with Rukia and Ichigo um, out of their initial exchange of powers. So yeah, sometimes it can be little moments like that that give maybe a little bit of insight to more polite stuff. Other times it can be just something symbolic or interesting. Other times it is, most of the time, it's a joke. But yeah, all in all, I think this chapter, largely serves to sort of connect the previous events with the whole Don Kanoji arc to the arc that we're moving into here with the Rock and Future 7 and the rest of this volume. So I think it works really well for doing that, especially. I wish we got a little bit more from the new character, but just enough to know, like, just enough to see those things. I like that there's that connection, too, between seeing Ichigo and Rukia and that being significant for Karen, and then getting that with this other stranger and how that changes things too, because like with Karen or whatever, we have this sort of idea of like maybe this is more innocuous, maybe she'll be more understanding, maybe that's something that can be smoothed over, but then we have this other character that we don't know at all, and we wonder like what his connection is to the spiritual, and maybe what he'll do with this information, right? How that's going to affect things. So all of that, I think, is something that kind of drives a little bit of our interest moving forward. And I like that the chapter, like I said, has those two moments of these other dark, like two different, very different dark-haired characters having this kind of realization about Ichigo. And if we're to read that this version is certainly a student at Karakura High, then they're probably somebody that knows about Ichigo. I mean, Ichigo would be a hard person not to know about in that school, given the way that he carries himself. So it'd be like, what have you found out like that? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't say a school bully, but like somebody that really stood out at your school as like a real punk. You found out that they were running around as a spirit, doing spirit cop stuff. Uh, yeah, I mean, and then the other kind of interesting thing is that whenever we think back about on it, we realized that he was there as well at the whole Don Kanoji thing. So you have to wonder how much of that he witnessed as well. So there's a bit going on, mystery afoot. New characters, new conflicts will arise. Things are going. We get the promise of things going to change. But the other big thing that we get in this chapter that I like is that we see all these characters too pulled together, not just in the principal's office, but hanging out afterwards. And so it's neat to kind of get them all in one space, which typically we just sort of get them in interaction with Ichigo. So I like that we get them all together for at least a scene. And this chapter is maybe significant for doing that. The Don Kanoji ones do, but they're still kind of split up in the crowd, This specifically has our whole main cast sort of joined up here. So that's another kind of neat thing that's memorable about this chapter. But all in all, solid, very solid chapter. I think good lead in to this next arc from the previous one. I think it ends on this character kind of introductory note that's pretty striking without having to be too over the top. So yeah, all that's working for me. It's also got some good gags in there too. I love Ichigo locking the doors on Kanaji. Yeah, let's talk about spoilers. Let's talk about things that connect into later chapters, right? As always, if you don't want to be spoiled, you can go ahead and consider the video finished now. But if you'd like to know how these things connect, this is the time for that. So let's get into it. Um, Obviously, me talking about all the uniform stuff, that's going to come up a lot with literally every organization of antagonists since this. So I think it's really interesting to see that the first use of that uniforming really is happening here at the high school. Um, and I think that's held in juxtaposition to the way that these characters are drawn in very individualistic sort of outfits in the chapter covers that give you a lot more of a sense of their identity otherwise. Um, the idea of a long lost twin brother with Ichigo is hilarious to me. Like, obviously, Kyan is the spirit that looks exactly like Ichigo but with black hair. So, I don't know. This idea of there being another version of you out there to an extent is something that I think Kubo plays with a little bit here. At least with Kyan for sure. Uh, and I mean, of course, it makes sense that Kyan looks like Ichigo because Ichigo's dad is Ishin Shiba, and so they're all related to a degree anyway. But yeah, I just kind of like that, and I think also, I made that observation about like Rukia really taking the blame, and that being kind of a performative thing, but her using that to help the others escape having punishment. Oh boy, that sure does come up later, right? So I like that we get that that's very in character for Rukia, that she's willing to kind of be this scapegoat in a lot of ways, and so it's neat that we have this established as a character trait of hers in a more innocuous scene like this. So that later, whenever the Shinigami come for her, she can very clearly be like, fuck you, Ichigo. I'm gonna go and be the one punished, right? Rather than seeing Ichigo killed for it, especially given the way that uh, Renji and Bayukua don't even see humans as like they see them as almost detestable or like not on the same like lives that are they're whatever, like who cares if you kill them, they'll become a spirit anyway. I don't know, it's not completely that carefree. Like ostensibly all of the Soul Society's duties are to whatever, protect human souls, right? So there's still very much this societal sort of preference towards the human soul, and that's important, but they still don't see humans as anything less than being kind of uh, you know lower life form, I think, in a lot of ways. Anyway, they all escape. I'm trying to think of some other moments. Obviously, this this whole bit with before I get to the bit with Orihime, kind of thinking about the future. I like that Tatsuki's talking about her singing voice, which is kind of interesting because clearly we got earlier that she really wanted to be this Vale Tudo champ, right? That she envisions herself going further in martial arts. But I love that her idea is that maybe she could have been discovered for being a singer. So it's a kind of interesting bit of build up for Tatsuki. Um, yeah, this whole I didn't realize at the time, but the night and the footage of it being something that would drastically change all of their lives. I feel like that's more a connection to everything with with this immediate arc, right? So if we think about it as being meant to connect to the hollow bait sort of moment that where basically Ishida challenges Ichigo because of that entire event. That's why Ishida decides to challenge Ichigo to the hollow hunting event. Because Ishida does that, both Chad and Orihime get attacked by hollows they wouldn't have been attacked by otherwise, and then end up kind of I was going to say developing, but that's not really the right word. They end up coming into their spiritual powers, like manifesting them finally, right? They've been building this spiritual awareness and building towards these powers before. We've seen that in earlier chapters, but here this is really the delineating moment between them being like, I'm fighting hollows versus only kind of aware of or dipping their toes in this more spiritual world. I mean, yes, Chad literally punched Shrieker a few times, hit him with a power telephone pole or whatever, but that's beside the point. I mean, actually defeating hollows on their own is a whole other thing. So it's neat to think about all of that. That this is speaking towards that, and because they develop those powers, they then get involved in this larger journey, which then brings them to rescue Rukia, which then gets them involved in all of Aizen's plans. Not that Ichigo wasn't already involved in all of Aizen's plans, but that's besides the point. Him being the Fullbringer Quincy Shinigami hybrid that was born of a Vastra Lord that Aizen let loose on purpose within the Karakura area. Anyway, there's like a lot going on there, but this is really like, it's interesting to think of the Don Kanonji chapter being the catalyst that sets all this off for at least Orihime and Chad. That had they not been involved in that, and had that not gone down that way, then maybe Yoshida would have never challenged Ichigo to that duel, etc., 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 etc. Right? So weird to think that Don Kanonji is responsible for the whole series, and ergo the characters being involved to the points where that they actually save all of reality. So what I'm saying here is that this is really confirmation in the manga that Don Kanonji is responsible for defeating Yhwach. It's truly a future that even almighty powers could not perceive, but here it is. Anyway, moving forward. Kind of a neat moment. This is another connection that I made just visually that's interesting. So Kanonji comes out of the van and he's wearing this big black robe to obscure his identity, and then he throws it off and it's Kanonji, right? But we get that same sort of concealing robe thing from Kisuke in the Turn Back the Pendulum. So it's kind of interesting again. I don't know, just seeing Kanonji wearing the same sort of thing that Kisuke does whenever Kisuke's up to no good. All I'm saying, Don Kanonji, more powerful character than ever. You didn't expect the Don Kanonji Kisuke comparisons. There they are. No, I think literally just Kubo likes drawing his characters hiding themselves. That's all. Being in a big, cool, shady black robe. I think it's less intentional moment of reference and more, this is just a cool visual Kisuke likes and got to use more than once. But yeah, as far as anything else going on, I mean, obviously Ichigo's going to leave Don Kanonji behind for the rest of the series. So goodbye, Don Kanonji. I don't know that we'll ever see you again, but love you, bro. Didn't expect to love you as much as I did, but now that we're here, now we're on the reread, it's goodbye. And then of course we get Ishida and the introduction to him properly, I suppose. I say proper introduction to Ishida, where we get to see him very clearly depicted, and it's an important sort of moment of interaction. I'm trying to think, because a lot of Ishida's early stuff is tied up in the whole thing with his grandfather and him being really embittered towards Shinigami. The whole Quincy Harder hates you sort of deal. And like him kind of trying to prove himself in the whole journey that he's been on. So it's neat to think that it's less about Ichigo himself and more about Ishida and all of his hangups regarding Shinigami, which makes a lot of sense, but still, uh, kind of neat to think about that connection and exactly what's maybe going through Ishida's head at this time. Um, yeah, I mean that's all. That's all I got. I don't have really anything else. Oop, that went too far. Next chapter will be Quincy Archer Hates You. Spoilers. Anyway, that's all I have for this one. If you see any other connections, let me know. Obviously, there might be some other visual kind of things that I didn't notice in this one. I kind of went through it pretty quickly, comparatively at least. But that's pretty much everything that I have to say here. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. Please remember, leave me a comment. I would really like to engage with you there about anything. Otherwise, show your love, give a like, share this with your friends, all that good stuff. Until then, do remember that spirits are forever with you. This has been Carker Gold with Bleach Revisited. Stay gold.